Look down at the dog sleeping at your feet, the one that rolls over for a belly rub, that watches your face to read your mood, that would rather be near you than anywhere else on earth. Now understand this. Every one of those dogs, from the tiniest lap warmer to the largest guard hound, is descended from a wild wolf, an animal that should have seen you as a threat, an animal built to hunt, to fear humans, and to keep its distance. Somehow, across tens of thousands of years, that fearful predator became the single most trusting animal we have ever known. It happened before farming, before writing, before the wheel. It is quite possibly the oldest partnership our species ever formed, and here is the strangest part of all. No one set out to make it happen. This is the story of how wolves became dogs. And by the end, you will see that we did not simply tame the wolf. The wolf, in a very real sense, helped tame itself. And in doing so, it changed us just as deeply as we changed it. Let's begin by clearing up the biggest misunderstanding of all. People often picture the story like this. Ancient humans found some wolf pups, took them home, raised them, and slowly turned them into dogs. It is a lovely image. It is almost certainly wrong. For one thing, the dog did not descend from the grey wolf you would see today. Look at a wild wolf now, and you are not looking at your dog's ancestor. You are looking at your dog's distant cousin. Both the modern wolf and the modern dog trace back to a shared ancestor, an ancient population of wolves that lived during the last ice age and has since vanished from the earth. That lost lineage split. One branch stayed wild and became the wolves we know. The other branch drew closer to us and became something entirely new. So the dog is not a tamed version of a living wolf. It is the surviving echo of a wolf that no longer exists, a ghost lineage that walked out of the ice age at our side. And the timing runs far deeper than most people imagine. The oldest widely accepted dog remains are well over 10,000 years old, and the genetic trail hints that the split from wolves may reach back 20, even 30,000 years deep into the age of mammoths and saber-toothed cats. These were not farmers. They were hunter-gatherers, following herds across a frozen world. Think about what that means. There were no fields, no fences, no villages, nothing that looks like the world we know. Just small bands of people moving with the seasons, hunting mammoth and reindeer and bison, sheltering in caves and rough camps against a cold we can barely imagine. Everything they owned they carried, every meal they had to catch or find. And into that harsh, wandering life, a wild predator quietly slipped alongside them. And neither the people nor the wolves could have had any idea what they were beginning. And it was in that world, around their firelight, that the wolf began to change. But how does a wild predator that fears humans ever come close enough to change at all? The answer is one of the most beautiful ideas in all of biology, and it turns the whole story on its head. It is called self-domestication. Picture a band of Ice Age humans camped on the tundra, butchering a kill. They leave behind bones, scraps, offal, the parts they cannot use. Now picture the wolves nearby. Most are terrified of the humans and keep their distance, and they go hungry. But in every wolf pack, there is variation. A few individuals are just a little bolder, a little calmer, a little slower to panic. Those braver wolves creep in at the edge of the camp when the humans sleep, and they feed. And here is the crucial thing. That boldness is partly written in their genes. The calm wolves eat better, so they survive better, and they raise more pups, and those pups inherit the same steadier nerves. Generation after generation, the wolves that could tolerate being near people had a quiet advantage. The camp became a new kind of habitat, and the ticket to living in it was not strength or speed. It was the ability to stay calm around humans. In other words, we did not chase down wolves and tame them by force. We left a trail of food, and the friendliest wolves followed it in, and then bred more friendly wolves, all on their own. Fear was slowly, invisibly being selected away. Notice how gentle and hands-off this really is. Nobody is training anything. Nobody is choosing which wolf lives or dies. The wolves are simply sorting themselves, night after night, by how close to a human they can bear to be. The nervous ones stay in the dark and stay hungry. The bold ones eat and grow strong and pass their steadier temperament to their pups. And there is a second gift hidden in this arrangement because it works both ways. Those bolder wolves would have been useful to the humans too, cleaning up rotting scraps that drew flies and disease, and raising the alarm with a bark or a howl whenever a bear or a rival group crept near in the dark, so the humans had every reason to tolerate them, even welcome them. Two very different animals, each quietly getting something they needed from the other, drifting closer across the generations. That single idea that tameness itself was the trait being favored is the key that unlocks everything that follows. Because when you breed an animal for friendliness, something astonishing happens. You do not just get a calmer animal, you get a whole cascade of changes you never asked for. To understand it, scientists point to a famous, long-running experiment with foxes. Researchers took wild silver foxes and did just one thing. In every generation, they let only the very tamest foxes, the ones least afraid of humans, have babies. They selected for nothing else, not appearance, not ear shape, not color, only friendliness. And within just a handful of generations, the foxes began to transform in ways nobody had aimed for. Their ears started to flop, their tails began to curl, patches of white appeared on their fur, their snouts grew shorter, their skulls a little more rounded, and they began to bark and whine and seek out human attention like dogs. Simply by breeding for a calm temperament, the scientists had accidentally recreated the look of a dog. This bundle of traits has a name. It is called domestication syndrome, and you can see its fingerprints on tame animals all over the world. Floppy ears, patchy or spotted coats, curled tails, shorter faces, smaller teeth, a more playful, puppy-like nature that lasts into adulthood. Why should tameness drag all of that along with it? The leading explanation is wonderfully subtle. Very early in an embryo, there is a special group of cells that fan out through the developing body. These same cells help build the adrenal glands that flood the body with fear and stress, and they also help shape the ears, the snout, the teeth, and the pigment cells that color the fur. When you breed for calmness, you are quietly selecting for animals whose fear machinery is dialed down. And because those same early cells also sculpt the face and ears and coat, turning down the fear response gently reshapes all of it at once. Floppy ears and a friendly heart, it turns out, may grow from the very same root. So the gentle wolf did not just lose its fear, it slowly lost the sharp, wild look of its ancestors, and it began, generation by generation, to look like man's best friend. And once you know this, you start to see it everywhere. It is not only dogs. Tame rabbits often have floppy ears and blotchy coats that wild rabbits never show. Domestic pigs, horses, cattle, goats, even tame birds, again and again carry patches of white, softer faces and gentler temperaments than their wild cousins. The same signature keeps appearing on animal after animal, in different corners of the world, wherever humans have bred a creature to be calm around us. It is as if there is a hidden switch inside the mammal body, and turning down fear tends to pull the same set of traits along with it every single time. The dog was simply the first animal we ever flipped that switch on, tens of thousands of years before we knew we were doing it. But losing fear is only half of the bond. Something else was happening between human and animal, something you can still feel every single day, and it lives in the eyes. Look into your dog's eyes, and your dog looks back. That simple act, holding a mutual gaze, is something wolves almost never do with us in a friendly way. For a wolf, a hard stare is a threat, but dogs learn to do the opposite. They learn to meet our eyes softly, to hold the look, and when they do, something remarkable happens inside both bodies. Studies have found that when a dog and its owner gaze into each other's eyes, both of them get a rise in a hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is the same chemical that floods a mother and her newborn when they lock eyes, the molecule of bonding and love and trust. In other words, The dog reaches into the exact system evolution built for parents and children, and it plugs itself in. Your dog looks at you, your brain releases the bonding hormone, you feel a wave of affection, you care for the dog feels it too, and the loop tightens. It is a feedback circle of affection running between two completely different species, and no wild wolf shares it with us. That gaze may be one of the deepest secrets of how the partnership held together across thousands of years. The wolf that could look us in the eye and make us love it was the wolf that never went hungry. And the dog's talent for reading us goes far beyond a single look. Point at something across a room, and your dog follows your finger to the exact spot. It sounds trivial, but it is not. Even our closest living relatives, chimpanzees, struggle to understand a simple pointing gesture. Dogs read it almost effortlessly, often better than a young child. Somewhere in that long journey out of the wild, dogs became exquisitely tuned to our attention, to where we look, to the tone of our voice, to the smallest shift in our faces. They can tell a happy expression from an angry one. They come running at the sound of a name. They have learned, in a way no wolf ever did, to watch us and to care what we are feeling. The wolf that came in from the cold did not just lose its fear of us. It slowly became fluent in us. Up to this point, the story has been mostly hands-off, food left behind, fear bred away, a bond built on gentle eyes. But once the wolf had become a true partner living among us, humans began to do something new. We started shaping the animal on purpose. This is where deliberate breeding, artificial selection, enters the story. Once dogs were part of the group, people began to notice that some were better at certain jobs. This one was a fearless guard. This one had a nose that could follow a scent for miles. This one was fast enough to run down prey, or gentle enough to be trusted around children, or clever enough to gather and steer other animals. So people began pairing the best hunters with the best hunters, the best guardians with the best guardians, choosing which dogs would have puppies based on what those dogs could do. Slowly, over many human lifetimes, this carved the raw wolf descendant into specialists. Dogs that pointed at hidden birds, dogs that dived into icy water to retrieve, dogs that herded flocks across mountains, dogs bred purely to sit in a lap and keep a person company. Every one of them still carried the heart of that first calm wolf, but their bodies and instincts were now being sculpted by human need. And the results of that sculpting are, frankly, staggering. Think about the sheer range of the dog. A tiny chihuahua you can hold in one hand, and a Great Dane that can rest its head on the dinner table, a wrinkled bulldog, a towering wolfhound, a fluffy Pomeranian, a lean racing greyhound. There are over 350 recognized breeds, and together they make the domestic dog the most physically varied land animal on the entire planet. No other single species comes close, and here is the fact that should stop you in your tracks. Every one of those breeds, all that dizzying variety of size and shape and coat and temperament, was carved from that single ancient wolf lineage in a sliver of evolutionary time. Nature usually needs millions of years to produce differences this large. Working with the dog, humans produce them in mere thousands. Most of the breeds you recognize today are astonishingly recent, shaped in just the last few centuries. The dog is not only our oldest animal partner, it is also a living monument to just how powerfully selection can reshape a body when it is pointed in a chosen direction. And this is why the dog matters so much to science, far beyond the wagging tail. Because they descend from one lineage, yet vary so wildly. Dogs have become a kind of natural laboratory for understanding how bodies are built. When researchers ask why one dog is huge and another tiny, or why one has a long snout and another almost none, the answers often trace back to just a handful of genes. Study those genes in dogs, and you begin to understand growth and shape and even disease in every mammal, ourselves included. The animal we made for company turns out to be one of the best teachers we have about life itself. Now, for all that we know, honesty demands that we admit how much is still argued over. This is a story scientists are actively piecing together, and the details are genuinely contested. Take the simple question of where it happened. Some evidence points to Europe, some points to Central Asia, or Siberia, or the Middle East, or East Asia. Ancient bones and modern dog genomes tell tangled, sometimes conflicting stories. There is even a serious idea that dogs may have been domesticated more than once, in more than one place, from different wolf populations that later blended together, which would help explain why the trail is so hard to follow. The exact date is debated too. Was the first real dog 15,000 years old, or twice that? The answers shift as new fossils are dug up and new DNA is read from ancient bones. But notice what is not in doubt, not whether it happened, only exactly where and when. The core of the story stands firm. An Ice Age wolf, drawn to our fires, lost its fear, changed its shape, learned to love us, and was then shaped by our hands into 1,000 forms. The map and the calendar are still being filled in. The journey itself is real. So step back and look at the whole arc of it. Tens of thousands of years ago, a wild predator that should have feared us made a different choice. The boldest, calmest wolves crept closer to our firelight, drawn by the food we left behind. Because that calmness was written in their blood, they thrived beside us and passed it on. And as fear drained out of them, floppy ears and soft eyes and curled tails quietly appeared. Then came the gaze that plugged them straight into our hearts, and finally our own hands, shaping that gentle wolf into hunter and herder and guardian and friend. We did not conquer the wolf. We met it halfway. It came toward us out of the cold, and we let it stay. And over 30,000 years, the two of us grew together into something neither could have become alone. That is why the animal at your feet is so much more than a pet. It is the outcome of the oldest friendship in human history. A bond forged in the Ice Age and carried, unbroken, all the way to your living room floor. So the next time your dog looks up and holds your gaze, remember what you are really looking at. Not just an animal, a wolf that chose, across 100,000 nights, to come closer, to trust, and to stay. Here is what we would love to know from you. When you look at your own dog, or any dog you love, which part of this ancient story amazes you the most? That they tame themselves by creeping toward our fires. That friendliness alone reshaped their ears and faces and tails. Or that a single quiet gaze can spark the same love a parent feels for a child. Tell us in the comments. And if this changed the way you see the dog beside you, stay with us. Because the natural world is full of impossible sounding things that turn out, in the end, to be beautifully true.